You don't know you've been made. That's the cruelest part of it. You've spent years training for exactly this moment, the moment everything starts to unravel. And when it finally arrives, it looks like nothing. It looks like a man drinking tea at a cafe. It looks like a car parked on a dusty street. It looks like ordinary Tehran on an ordinary afternoon. And that's precisely why it's so dangerous. Because the most lethal trap is the one that doesn't look like a trap at all. You are a North Korean intelligence operative embedded deep inside the Islamic Republic of Iran. Your cover is airtight. Your documentation is clean. Your fabricated history stretches back years. A logistics consultant with a digital footprint that could survive serious scrutiny. A ghost wrapped in paperwork. A man who technically exists, but shouldn't. You did everything right. You followed every protocol. You made no attachments, left no patterns, raised no flags, and yet here you are, sitting in a cafe in Tehran, and something is telling you that the world as you know it is about to end. Check the time. Your handler hasn't made contact in 36 hours. That's not protocol. That's not even close to protocol. Not at this stage of the operation, not when you are this close to completing your objective. The silence should feel like safety. Instead, it feels like a held breath. You glance at your phone, a dead messaging app. No notifications, no signal. You scroll anyway because that's what a normal person would do, and right now being a normal person is the only armor you have left. Across the street, a man sits at a cafe table. Same seat as yesterday, same glass of tea. Same stillness that shouldn't belong to anyone who isn't watching something very carefully. The problem isn't that he's watching you. The problem is that he's not. He hasn't looked at you once. And in a city full of eyes, Bassage, intelligence officers, informants layered on informants, a man who deliberately doesn't look at you is far more dangerous than one who does. 2 buildings down, a black car sits against the curb. Dusty, engine off. But someone is inside. You feel it before you confirm it, a cold mathematical certainty settling behind your eyes. This isn't Iranian surveillance. Iranian surveillance is heavy-handed, visible and political. What you're looking at is something else entirely. Something cleaner. Something that has been watching you long enough to know exactly when to stop moving. This is Mossad. And if they've found you here, inside Tehran, something has gone catastrophically wrong. You stand slowly, leave cash on the table, don't rush. Rushing is confession. You step into foot traffic and begin counting steps the way you were trained. 300 meters to the intersection, 2 viable exits, a crowded bazaar to the left, a narrow alley to the right. You choose the crowd because crowds swallow you, but crowds also funnel you if someone already knows where you're going. Behind you, footsteps, not close, not obvious, but synchronized to yours in a way that isn't coincidence. You turn your head just enough to catch a reflection in a storefront window. The man from the cafe is gone. The black car is not. Its engine is running now. The bazaar hits you like a physical force. Noise, color, heat, sham the layered chaos of vendors and buyers and metal clanging against metal. You weave left, then right, then double back. You stop at a spice stand and pretend to examine saffron. You watch the reflections, and there it is. A figure moving against the current of the crowd. Not pushing through it, not fighting it. Flowing, precise, patient. That's not local intelligence. That's training at a level you recognize because you have it yourself. You abandon your route. You abandon the mission. The objective no longer matters. The only thing that matters now is survival, and even that is beginning to feel like a negotiation you might lose. But something is wrong with the timeline. Everything is happening too fast, too cleanly, too precisely. They didn't stumble onto you. They didn't intercept a signal or follow a trail. They tracked you, which means the problem isn't your field work. The problem is your network. Someone, somewhere between Pyongyang and Tehran, exposed you before you even landed. Your cover isn't compromised. You were sent here already marked. A pawn deployed to measure Mossad's response time. A disposable asset, a test. That thought settles into you like cold water. You flag down a taxi, give a location, random, plausible, far enough to buy time. As the car pulls into traffic, you check the rearview mirror. The black car follows, maintaining a careful, almost respectful distance. They're not chasing you. They're escorting you. And that is infinitely worse, because it means they're not afraid of losing you. They already know how this ends. You sit in the back seat and run your options like a calculation. Escape on foot? Too exposed. Lose them in traffic? Unlikely. Contact a fallback? Risky and probably already burned. Every move you make is closing another door. You begin to understand something your training never quite prepared you for. You are not escaping a trap. You are inside one that was designed specifically around how you think. They've been watching you move, watching how you react. They don't just want your body, they want your methods, your patterns, your system, your mind. The taxi slows. Traffic ahead, a minor collision. 2 cars angled awkwardly. Drivers arguing loudly, bodies blocking the lane. Too convenient, too clean. The environment has been shaped. Every step since the cafe has been controlled. You weren't evading, you were being moved, the way a piece is moved on a board, and you only realize it when you see the end game. You lean forward, you tell the driver to stop. He hesitates, you repeat it. He pulls over. You step into the noise and the heat, and you do the one thing that might buy you another 60 seconds. You break logic. You move against instinct into a narrow passage, dim and quiet. Wrong direction, unpredictable. For a moment there is silence. No footsteps, no car. Just you and the sound of your own heartbeat and the weight of what you now know. You replay it all. The cafe. The 36 hours of silence. The tracking that was too precise to be reactive. And one conclusion surfaces. Again and again you were exposed before you arrived. And you didn't get caught in the field. Someone in your own system handed you over. Deliberately. Perhaps to settle a debt, perhaps to test Mossad's capabilities, perhaps because you were never meant to complete the mission at all. You were the message, not the messenger. Then you hear it. Footsteps, calm and measured, no urgency. They've found you again, and of course they have, because this was never improvisation on their part. It was always a design. You turn slowly. 2 men. No visible weapons, no aggression, composed in a way that tells you everything. Resistance is not just pointless, it's beside the point. One of them speaks, not loudly, almost gently. You've had a long day. Perfect accent, neutral tone, no anger, no triumph, just acknowledgement. As if this is simply the next scheduled item on a very long agenda. You think through the last protocols anyway, because that's what the training demands. Fight, you'd last seconds. Run, you'd make it meters. End it, the final protocol, the one you were always told was available if capture was imminent. But you don't move toward any of those options. And the reason you don't, the reason your hand stays still and your body stays exactly where it is, deserves to be examined carefully, because it tells you something about the kind of intelligence operation you've stumbled into. This isn't a grab. It isn't a rendition. If it were, they would have taken you in the taxi, in the bazaar, on the crowded street where confusion could swallow the moment whole. They had at least 4 clean opportunities before this alley, and they used none of them. Instead, they shepherded you here into this quiet, away from cameras and witnesses and the noise that might have given you cover. They chose this space deliberately. They chose this moment deliberately. And that deliberateness, that surgical patience, tells you they want you in a specific psychological state when the real conversation begins. Not panicked, not defiant, thinking, calculating, vulnerable enough to talk, but coherent enough to be worth talking to. They are not ending this interaction. They are engineering it. Everything from the cafe to the bazaar to the staged traffic and this narrow passage has been a controlled environment designed to exhaust your contingencies before the first real question is asked. By the time they speak to you in that windowless room, you won't have anything left to hide behind. Not adrenaline, not protocol. Not even the clean certainty of refusing to break. They will have already dismantled the architecture of your resistance without laying a single hand on you. That is what genuine intelligence craft looks like from the inside. Not force, not theatre, just the slow, patient removal of every option except cooperation. You're far from home, the second man says, and in those 4 words you understand the full architecture of what's happening. They're not breaking you. They're easing you, dissolving resistance before it can harden into something they'd have to dismantle piece by piece. You stay silent because silence is the last form of control you have. But inside, the calculation has already shifted. The question is no longer how to escape. The question is leverage. What do they know for certain? And what do they only think they know? Where is the gap? And how do you survive long enough to find it? You raise your hands slightly. Not surrender, not defiance, just acknowledgement. The first man nods, almost with respect, as if this moment was expected and in some strange way appreciated, because to them, you are not a victory. You are an entry point, a door into something larger, the network that sent you, the system that built you, the chain of decisions that stretches from a room in Pyongyang all the way to this alley in Tehran. They guide you out without ceremony, no sirens, no visible backup, no commotion of any kind, because this operation was never public. It never happened. And by extension, neither do you. Hours from now, you'll be in a room with no windows. Days from now, the questions will begin. Not questions that sound like questions, but conversations carefully structured to make you feel like you're in control while they map everything you know. Weeks from now, and the line between what you remember and what you've been made to believe you remember will begin to blur. But right now, standing between two men who are always going to find you, you understand the truth that no amount of training ever prepares you for. The mission doesn't end when you're captured. That's when it actually begins. Because the information in your head doesn't vanish when they catch you, it transfers. And somewhere far away in a building with no signage on a street with no name, someone is already reading your file, assigning a designation to your replacement and preparing them for insertion. You were a variable in someone else's equation, and the equation is still running. It was never about you at all.